The scorching midday sun burned down on the concrete. The street shimmered with heat waves, and most people stayed inside air-conditioned buildings. Only one figure moved slowly through the heat, hunched over, steps shaky, clothes clinging. With dust and time, she was an old woman, perhaps in her 60s. Her face was thin and hollow. Her hands trembled as she approached the door of a high-end restaurant downtown. Her sandals were worn down to the sole, and her sunken eyes reflected exhaustion and hunger. She didn't want money. She just wanted some leftover rice, anything to keep her from collapsing in the heat. She slowly pushed the door open and stepped inside. Instantly, the cool air of the restaurant clashed with her appearance. Conversations paused. Forks stopped midair. Her presence was out of place, jarring against the polished glass tables and the scent of luxury cuisine. A waitress looked startled. Some guests frowned and turned their heads. But before anyone else could speak, a loud, shrill voice rang out. "What do you think you're doing here? Get out!" It was the restaurant owner, a middle-aged woman draped in designer jewelry, high heels clicking across the marble floor. The old woman lowered her head even more, voice trembling. I'm sorry. I was wondering if you might have some leftover rice or soup. I haven't eaten in 2 days." The woman scoffed, loudly, mockingly. "Leftovers? Do we look like a charity to you? I don't give scraps to lazy people who can't take care of themselves. Get out before I call security." The old woman looked around. Some guests stared. Others avoided eye contact. Not a single person said a word in her defense. "Please, I'm not asking for money," she whispered. "Just something to eat." But the restaurant owner raised her voice even more, making sure every table heard. "I said get out. You're disturbing my customers. This is a place for paying people, not beggars like you." The waitress looked conflicted. Pity flashed in her eyes. She stepped forward, perhaps to offer help, but the owner barked. "You? Don't you dare give her anything. I won't have my staff encouraging this kind of behavior." And so, slowly, the old woman turned and stepped outside. But before she could make it far, her knees buckled. She collapsed right in front of the restaurant's glass door. Still, no one moved. The owner glanced outside, rolled her eyes, and muttered, "Let her lie there. Maybe she'll learn to go beg somewhere else next time." Then she shut the door. The air conditioning hummed. Conversations resumed, like nothing had happened. But in the far corner, a quiet man, in a plain shirt, barely noticeable, had been watching the entire scene. He didn't speak. He didn't move. But his eyes never left the woman, lying outside in the heat. What no one knew was that this man was the CEO of a major corporation. And that old woman, she was not just any beggar. She was his mother. The sun had already begun to set by the time she woke up. Her lips were dry. Her hands scraped from the fall. She was lying on the sidewalk just outside the same place she had been thrown out of hours. Earlier, the glass door reflected nothing but indifference. A kind young man, not from the restaurant, had left a bottle of water next to her while she slept. Someone cared. But they didn't stay. She slowly sat up. Her stomach growled again. But this wasn't the first time. Hunger had become a familiar ache, a silent companion in the years since she lost everything. Years ago, she had once lived a simple but honorable life. Her name was Maria. She had worked at a laundry shop, folding clothes from morning till night, raising her son alone after her husband passed in a construction accident. Life had never been easy, but she never begged. Never once. Her sonny Ethan was everything. She saved every coin for his school supplies. She skipped meals so he could eat well. When he fell sick at age 8, she spent nights at the hospital bench, holding his hand. And when he left for the city to study and then work, she smiled and waved goodbye. Even though her heart ached to see him go, they used to talk every week. But then, the calls became less frequent. First once a week, then once a month, then nothing. One day, silence, then no more contact. Maria didn't know what happened. Did he change his number? Was he too busy? Did he forget? She waited. She wrote letters. They came back unopened. She asked neighbors. No one knew. Eventually, she sold the little house she had to pay for a private investigator. But he came back empty-handed. The only thing she had left was the hope that one day she might see Ethan again, maybe even just passing by on the street. Until then, she slept in parks, picked up cans, washed car windows at traffic lights. She didn't complain. She still believed in her son. Back to the present, Maria dragged herself to a nearby alley and leaned against a wall. Her body trembled from the heat and hunger, but her heart hurt more. Have I really fallen this low? She whispered to herself. I never wanted to beg. I just wanted a little rice. She thought of Ethan. Would he recognize her now? Would he even care? Would he be ashamed? She pulled out a small, faded photograph from the inside of her torn bag. A picture of her and Ethan when he graduated from university. She kissed the photo, tears falling silently. My son, she whispered. Are you out there somewhere? He was. At that same moment, in a tall glass building just blocks away, Ethan stood in front of a boardroom, closing a major deal. He was successful, polished, powerful. But something inside him felt hollow. He hadn't seen his mother in over a decade, and he had no idea that just a few days ago, she had been lying in front of a restaurant, hungry, humiliated, and heartbroken. But fate has a strange way of bringing stories full circle. Ethan sat in the back of his private car, scrolling through his emails on a tablet. His assistant sat in the front, reading off his schedule. Board meeting at 9, investor call at 11, lunch at Langston's, and then he interrupted her. Langston's? That's the place near 5th and Monroe. Yes, sir. You requested something quiet for the client. He paused. His eyes narrowed slightly. That name, that location, for some reason, it triggered a discomfort in his chest, like something had happened there recently. He couldn't explain it. He shook it off. Meanwhile, across town, Maria sat at the back of a church soup kitchen, sipping warm broth. The volunteers had found her curled up near a dumpster and brought her in. She hadn't spoken much, just nodded, thanked them softly, and sat alone. She clutched the photo of Ethan in her hands, like it was the only thing still keeping her grounded. Maybe I'll see him again tomorrow, she whispered. Maybe I'll try that building down by 5th Street. Back at Ethan's office later that day, as he walked through the corridor, a junior employee accidentally bumped into him, papers scattering everywhere. Ethan bent down to help Dot, and then he noticed one of the documents was a charity's sponsorship. Request for a community kitchen. On the list of recent visitors, a name jumped out. Maria Alvarez. He froze. That name. He hadn't said it aloud in over 10 years. His heart skipped. Who submitted this? He asked the employee. The Midtown Shelter. They keep logs of everyone who comes in for meals. Did she say where she's staying? No address. Just comes in some nights, sometimes not. They said she usually wanders near 5th and Monroe. Ethan felt like the air had been knocked out of him. Thank you, he mumbled and turned away. Fast flashback. A memory he'd buried. He remembered a time, not so long ago, when he was broke and exhausted. When his mother, in her tiny hands, had pushed her last $20 bill into his palm and said, "Don't worry about me, Mia. Just go make something of yourself." He had promised to send for her, to bring her to the city. But then success came, and success, it turned out, had a cruel price: distance. He always told himself he was just waiting for the right moment to call, that he'd reach out when things settled down. But they never did. And now she was on a list, a homeless meal list. That night, Ethan didn't go to the restaurant. He cancelled all meetings. He drove himself, without his driver, back to 5th and Monroe. He parked the car and just stood there. The street was quiet. Empty food wrappers blew in the breeze. Then he noticed the door to the restaurant across the street, Langston's, and suddenly he remembered. He had been there last week, alone, having lunch before a meeting. He saw something, someone, a woman who collapsed at the door. He hadn't realized it then. But now the face was clear in his memory. It was her. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He sat in his car parked near Langston's restaurant, eyes fixed on the sidewalk where she had fallen. Every sound made him jolt. Every woman passing by, every wrinkle, every scarf, made his heart lurch, only to crash again in disappointment. Why didn't I recognize her sooner? Why didn't I stop her? His mind was racing. Morning came. He started searching. He went to the nearest shelter listed on the document, Midtown Mission. Maria Alvarez, the volunteer said, flipping through a folder. Yes, she came in 2 days ago, had soup, then left. No idea where she went. Ethan left his number, donated $5,000, and moved to the next place. And the next dot, and the next dot. No one had seen her since that day. He walked, blocks under the sun, suit jacket tossed over his arm, his white shirt soaked with sweat. People stared. He didn't care. He searched every alley, every bus bench, every corner he could think of. "Mama," he whispered to himself, voice cracking. "Where are you?" Meanwhile, Maria sat by a riverbank. She wasn't far, only 2 neighborhoods away. She liked the river. It reminded her of home, of when Ethan was a boy, chasing frogs and throwing rocks into the water. In her hands, she held a small sandwich a nun had given her earlier. She ate half. The rest she wrapped in a napkin and kept. "Maybe I'll find someone hungrier than me today," she said to herself with a smile. Even now, even after all she'd been through, she still thought of others first. Later that day, Ethan walked past a small bakery and spotted a young woman, the waitress from Langston's, sitting outside, tying her apron. He paused. Then crossed the street. "Excuse me, do you work at Langston's?" he asked. "I used to," she said. "I quit after what happened last week." With the woman outside, her eyes widened. "You saw that too?" "Yes," he nodded. I think that woman was my mother." Silence. The girl looked stunned. "Sir, I tried to help her. I swear I did. But my boss screamed at me. I gave her food after my shift. She said thank you like it was gold." Tears welled in her eyes. Ethan looked away, jaw clenched. "Do you remember anything else?" he asked. "Anything she said?" She kept holding a photo. Said she was looking for her son. "Did she say his name?" "No. But she looked proud, even when she had nothing." That broke something inside him. That night, back at home, Ethan sat on the floor of his penthouse apartment, surrounded by silence. No meetings, no calls, no dinner parties. Just the sound of his own regret. He opened an old drawer he hadn't touched in years. Inside were a few childhood photos. His mother in every single one. Her smile was the same. Her eyes, kind, tired, full of love. He held one close to his chest and whispered, "Please, just let me find you. Let me make this right." The city buzzed like normal. Cars honked. Buses roared past. People rushed along the sidewalks, staring at their phones. But Ethan noticed none of it. All he could think of was her face, her voice, her hands that once wiped his tears, her arms that once held him tight when the nights were cold. Now, she was somewhere out here. Alone. Ethan returned to Midtown Shelter again. "Anything?" he asked. His voice hopeful. The volunteer shook his head. "She didn't come last night." "Can I leave another donation?" Ethan asked. "Just let me know if she returns." He scribbled his number again, underlined it twice, before he left. He pulled out an envelope from his jacket. Inside was a copy of the photo, his graduation photo with his mother. He handed it to the volunteer. "If you see her, give her this, please." The volunteer nodded. Ethan turned to go. Meanwhile, just 3 blocks away, Maria walked slowly along a park fence, holding a plastic bag with a piece of bread and a small bottle of water. A kind lady from the church had given it to her. Her steps were weak, but she was smiling. That morning, a little boy had waved at her. Just that, a small wave, a gap-toothed grin. But it reminded her of Ethan when he was 5. He used to wave just like that, she murmured, smiling to herself. She passed by a bookstore window and stopped. Inside, she saw a man, tall, in a grey suit, hair neat, eyes focused, talking to a cashier. She stared. For just a moment, she thought Ethan, but no. This man was too polished, too far from the boy she once knew. She looked down. She walked away. Inside the bookstore, Ethan glanced out the window. He saw a figure walking past, something familiar in the way. She hunched slightly, the way she held a bag close to her chest. His heart skipped. He ran outside. But the crowd had shifted. She was gone. That night, Ethan stood alone on a rooftop. City lights sparkled beneath him like fallen stars. He had power, wealth, recognition, but none of it meant anything. Not if he couldn't hold his mother's hand again. "Where are you, Mama?" he whispered. "Do you even want to see me? Or have I hurt you too much?" Across the city, Maria curled up on a bench beneath a tree. Her arms hugged her bag. The stars above flickered like candles. She looked up and said softly, "Wherever you are, Mio, I hope you're warm. I hope you're safe." She didn't know that he was out there, searching, and he didn't know that she was still so close. One street apart, one moment missed. One miracle waiting. 1 week passed. Langston's restaurant sparkled like always. White tablecloths, polished glasses, laughter bouncing off marble walls. Business had recovered after the incident, or so they thought. The owner stood near the entrance, barking orders as usual. "Wipe that glass again." "No, not that bottle. The vintage one." And someone refilled table 6's water. To her, it was just another day, another lunch rush, another chance to remind people she was in charge. Then the door opened. A man in a tailored navy suit walked in, tall, composed, calm, but with an energy that silenced the room. "Good afternoon," he said to the hostess. "Do you have a reservation, sir?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "I believe your manager is expecting someone important today." The owner turned, ready to dismiss yet another somebody. But then she saw him. Her face dropped. This man, she remembered him. He had been here before, quiet, watching, and now he wasn't alone. Behind him stood a woman, small, frail, dressed in clean but simple clothes. Her hair pulled back neatly, a soft scarf around her neck. It was her. The same old woman, the same one she had screamed at, the one who had collapsed outside. Gasps filled the room. A waiter dropped his tray. Customers froze. The owner rushed forward. "Yes, sir. Welcome. Welcome. What an honor to have you back. Please, please this way." She pretended not to see the woman behind him. But he didn't move. He turned to Maria. He extended his hand. She looked at him. Her eyes widened, and slowly, with tears forming, she took his hand. He guided her forward, into the middle of the restaurant, and faced the owner. "Do you remember her?" The owner's fake smile twitched. I'm not sure. We serve so many people. Try again." He interrupted. "She came here a week ago, hungry, asking for help." The owner's voice dropped. "Ah, that. That was my mother. Dead silence. No one moved. No one breathed. He continued, voice calm but firm. You threw her out, humiliated her, treated her like trash. The owner turned pale. I didn't know. She didn't say. You didn't ask. He replied. You didn't care. He looked around the room, at the guests, at the staff. This place was supposed to stand for something. Quality, service, kindness. Instead, it's built on ego. And today, I came back to say this. He pulled out a folder. I've just acquired full ownership of Langstons. As of 9 a.m. this morning. Another gasped. The owner nearly stumbled. You bought it. No, he said. She did. He turned to his mother. This restaurant now belongs to her. Maria's voice was soft, but steady. I don't want revenge, she said, but I do want change. From today forward, no one will be turned away for being hungry. Not here, because dignity doesn't cost anything. The entire room stood still, and then, slowly, one by one, people began to applaud. Even the staff, even the guests, even the hostess at the door. The owner, she stood frozen, defeated, silent. The very next morning, headlines flooded social media. Homeless woman becomes owner of the restaurant that threw her out. Son surprises long-lost mother with a gift she'll never forget. Justice served at Langstons. Literally news. Outlets replayed the moment over and over. The look on the former owner's face, the gentle but powerful words from Maria, and the applause that followed. It wasn't just a viral moment. It was a movement. People began to talk, and more importantly, reflect. Thousands commented, my mom raised me alone too. This made me cry. What a beautiful way to teach a lesson with dignity, not hate. That man didn't just give his mother a restaurant. He gave her back her name. Strangers came to Langstons with flowers, handwritten notes, and simple messages taped to the windows. Thank you, Maria. You reminded us what kindness looks like. No one is invisible. Inside the restaurant, Maria sat at the corner booth, where once she had collapsed outside, hungry and alone. Now, she was surrounded by warmth, not just from the fresh food and smiling staff, but from something deeper, belonging. A little girl ran up to her and handed her a drawing. This is you, she said shyly. My mom said you're a hero. Maria took the paper, her eyes soft. Thank you, sweetheart, but I'm not a hero. I'm just a mother. Ethan stood at a distance. Watching her, he had returned. Every day since. Not as a CEO, not as a guest of honor. Just as her son. He didn't say much, not yet. There were still things he needed to say, things he had carried for too long. Regrets. Tears. But for now, he was content to sit quietly nearby, to make sure she had soup when she wanted it. Tea when she was tired. And peace. Finally, as for the former owner, she had packed up her things and left the city. No press release. No apology. Some said she couldn't handle the shame. Others said she simply couldn't understand. But either way, no one really missed her, because Langstons had changed, and not just in ownership, but in spirit. One night, a new sign was unveiled. not flashy, not gold, just hand-painted wood. Hanging above the door, Maria's place, where everyone deserves a seat. People lined up down the street, some hungry, some curious, all human, and for once, that was enough. It was a quiet night. The restaurant had closed early. The tables were clean, the lights dimmed. Outside, the city had slowed down. The noise faded to a hush. Maria sat at her usual corner booth, a cup of chamomile tea in her hands. The soft steam curled in the air. Across from her sat Ethan. For the first time, mother and son sat face to face. No cameras, no headlines. Just them, and a decade of silence between them. Ethan spoke first. I thought about this moment a million times, he said. But now that I'm here, I don't know what to say. Maria gave a small smile, her fingers wrapping tighter around the cup. Start with the truth, she whispered. That's always enough. He nodded, his voice cracked. I didn't mean to disappear. I meant to call, meant to visit. But then, things kept coming up. Work, pressure, deadlines. He looked down, ashamed. And then one day, it felt like too much time had passed. I thought maybe you didn't want to hear from me anymore. Maria's eyes glistened. You thought I wouldn't want my son? She asked softly. After everything, he couldn't look at her. I was scared, he admitted. Scared that you'd be disappointed, that I'd failed you. She reached across the table. Her hand, wrinkled and warm, touched his. Mio, I never needed you to be rich or perfect. I just needed to know you were okay. I would have lived in a tent if it meant hearing your voice again. A tear slipped down Ethan's cheek. I'm sorry, Mama. She squeezed his hand. You're here now. That's enough. They sat in silence for a while. To people, relearning how to be close again. Ethan pulled something from his pocket. The old photo she used to carry. I found this at the shelter, he said. They said you never let go of it. She smiled. It was all I had left of you. Now, she added, her voice shaking with emotion, I have you again. Ethan looked around the room. I never thought this place would become yours. I didn't want it. Maria said, not to own, but I wanted to change what it stood for. It used to be a place that turned people away. Now, it welcomes them. Ethan nodded. That's exactly what you've always done. Opened doors, even when they were shut in your face. She chuckled softly. Maybe you got that from me. They both laughed, for the first time in years. Later that night, before heading home, Ethan helped Maria into his car. As they drove past the restaurant, she looked back one last time. The sign Maria's place glowed in the dark. You know, she said, I never imagined any of this. But sometimes, the things we don't imagine become the most important parts of our story. Ethan smiled. I'm just glad this chapter has you in it again. Weeks passed, but the warmth inside Maria's place only grew stronger. What began as a shocking twist, a homeless woman returning with a CEO, slowly became something bigger. People didn't just come to eat. They came to remember what kindness looked like. Maria became more than an owner. She was a listener, a hug giver, a silent hero. She sat with elderly men who had no families, listened to teenage runaways who hadn't heard their names, spoken kindly in weeks, served soup with a smile to people who once thought they had no dignity left. One day, a man walked in, thin, shaking. He had slept in a park for months. People ignored him. He barely remembered the sound of his own voice. Maria sat him down, brought him warm bread and chicken stew. When he tried to say thank you, he choked up. She just smiled. "You don't need to thank me," she said. "You just need to eat." He cried. The restaurant started something. Other business owners nearby began offering free meals once a week. A coffee shop put up a sign, "No one eats alone here." A bookstore turned a corner into a reading nook for unhoused children. Volunteers signed up to help at Maria's place. Teachers, nurses, retired folks, even teenagers. The mayor visited, not for a photo, just to say, "This place changed how we see people." One night, a young journalist interviewed Maria. "What made you forgive them?" she asked. Maria stirred her tea quietly, then looked up with soft eyes. "Because anger is heavy," she said. "And I'd already carried too much." The journalist paused. "And what do you want people to remember most?" Maria smiled. "That everyone has a story. Some are just harder to hear through hunger." At home, Ethan watched the interview online. He had heard his mother say those words before. Years ago, when he was a child and found a stray dog trembling behind their house. He wanted to chase it away. She stopped him. "Everyone's scared of something," she said. "That's why we feed first, ask questions later." Now, the whole world was listening, and he couldn't have been prouder. The sun set gently behind the buildings, casting a golden glow over Maria's place. Inside. The last few guests were finishing their meals. Volunteers cleaned tables. Music played softly in the background. The scent of cinnamon tea lingered in the air. Maria stood near the window, watching children laugh outside as they chased one another across the sidewalk. She smiled. She never imagined this, that a moment of cruelty would lead to so much compassion, that pain would grow into purpose. Later that evening, she sat with Ethan, just the two of them, a warm dinner between them. Simple, but perfect. "Do you ever miss the old days?" Ethan asked. Maria thought for a moment. "Sometimes," she said. "But not for the things we had, just for the time. Time when you were small. Time I thought we had more of." He looked down, quietly. "I wasted so much of it." She reached across the table, taking his hand. "No," she said. "You gave it back, every second of it, just by coming home." Ethan had one more surprise. He handed her a small envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "A key." He smiled. "To your new home. Just outside the city. A garden, a little lake. You'll love it." She opened it slowly. Her hands trembled. "I don't need a house," she said gently. "I have everything I need here." But, he insisted, "it's not just for comfort. It's for rest. You've carried too much, Mama. Let me carry something now." She nodded, tears in her eyes. The next week, she moved in, a small cottage surrounded by trees. birdsong in the morning, sunlight on her porch, and peace. Every Sunday, Ethan came for lunch. Sometimes with pastries, sometimes with flowers, always with time. And they talked, not about money. Not about success, just about life. And love. As for Maria's place, it continued to grow, but more importantly, it continued to welcome. Every meal still came with a note on the napkin. You matter. You are seen. You are loved. Years later, a young boy visited with his father. They sat at the corner table. The boy pointed to a framed photo on the wall. Maria, smiling, holding a bowl of soup. "Who is that, Dad?" he asked. His father smiled. "She's the reason this place exists. She was a mother who never stopped believing."